views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors and photographers and filmmakers and videographers, anybody who's putting something out in the Bronx. And this evening we're going to talk politics with an editor. And also in our second part of our show, the Historic Districts Council has put out a wonderful community series in the Bronx, and we're going to talk about that. So anyway, let's get started with our first guest. The first guest is the political editor-in-chief of Schneps Media, which has over 70 publications. Why is that important to us? Because that includes AM New York and our good friends at the Bronx Times. He's also the editor-in-chief of politicsnewyork.com, which is also a Schneps Media property. And actually, I should show this right here. Is the Bronx Times reporter, and there's politicsnewyork.com. Steve Witt, nice to have you with us, Mr. Witt.
Thank you very much, Gary. Nice
just a little background. We could talk about Schneps Media and the Bronx Times, and that association is one thing. But for you, people would want to know, well, who is the guy who's editing this this really great Politics New York section of the Bronx Times?
Well, I am a longtime reporter. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I came to New York in 1980, and I originally came here as a musician, and I was a subway musician. And I got into journalism. I began a weekly column with an arts weekly paper in the Village called the Street Singers Beat. And I wrote a weekly column interviewing subway musicians for 7 years.
Wow.
And then I morphed into a job at the Times Herald Record in upstate New York in the news department. And lo and behold, I was hired after being a correspondent there for a year. And then I worked for various newspapers, dailies and weeklies. And then I came to New York and I worked for News Corp and Courier Life Publications. And then I started my own website. And then recently Schneps Media bought them. And here I am.
Here you are.
Covering for 20 years.
You know what they say about people, let's say radio, which is my background, radio guys and broadcasting or TV people. They say the good ones have a trailer behind them that they're carrying their stuff. The really good ones have a really big trailer behind them. So I guess you would qualify for that. Well, let's talk about this now. The Bronx Times, of course, is as good a community, has always been, even before Schneps Media got involved, as good a community paper as you could imagine. But now the addition of this section, which provides, New York news and Bronx political news. Just talk to me about your perspective of what you do and why you put this out and why this was added to the Bronx Times.
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of Laura. She really knows Laura, her last name.
Laura Guerriero.
Right. Hard to pronounce. She knows the Bronx like no one else.
She's the editor of the Bronx Times. Yes.
And she like breathes and lives the Bronx. And when I came on board, the one thing that I felt that was needed and Schneps Media felt was needed was a little stronger political coverage. The voter turnout for the city council races isn't as strong in some districts as could be. There's issues in the Bronx, and we really like to hit hyper local political coverage. Mm-hmm. And we just felt that it's an important component to covering the Bronx.
You're kind by saying it. The turnout is not as strong as it should be in some places. It's not as strong as it should be in any places in the Bronx. I've been doing this a very, very long time. And this particular season is a pretty good season. If you're going to launch something like this, I mean, every district is essentially going to have a new council member. And of course, there's a mayor's race in the Bronx. There's a borough president's race. It's a pretty fertile time. Just from your perspective, what have you enjoyed about covering it or even assigning other people to write? What's been dynamic about it? I know how I feel about it, but curious what you think.
Well, the one thing we've been doing is our company through our political website, Politics NY, we put in, we're the only paper that has a candidate page. And we call them fun and fast forums. So we actually did a city council debate with all the candidates in every city council race in the Bronx and the Bronx borough president. And, and I personally moderated many of them with Sky, who's our executive producer of our video component. And you could find those on Politics NY/debate. We recorded them over Zoom. And I think the reason we did it is we felt we wanted to give exposure to everybody, entering the public political arena and see what they were about. We felt that it's a good civic obligation to do.
Certainly we're on the same page. We're beginning to record all of them leading into a primary day, as you know. And the reason I'm thrilled is because this is about partnership. It's not about competition. And the more information we put out, the more perspectives we put out, the more people will come to vote, the better our communities will be. I mean, it's a domino effect like that.
Exactly, and we're working with you on them.
There's no question that the Bronx Times is co-sponsoring them. I find that the Zoom context is a challenge. I mean, we've been doing debates in a room, and I've been doing them in a studio for many, many years. Curious what you thought about trying to manage 3 candidates, 4 candidates, 5 candidates, sometimes more in this box per box per box framework. And after you say what you think, I'll tell you what I think.
Okay. I think at first it was a challenge. There's some advantages when people go on and on. You can do we do this, or
right.
This, like shorten it up time. And if they go on and on, we can mute them. You can't do that.
That's true. Yeah, well, you could cut the mic, but that gets really ugly. That's
right.
Not good.
But, we tend to give the ground rules. And then we say, when you go along, you're going to see this or this. And that means wrap it up. So, I think it is a little bit of a challenge. But, human beings are very adaptable. And I mean, I'm sure you've adapted through the pandemic. And now it's almost getting to be adaptable back, because now we're going to have to start doing live things again.
Eventually we will. I know that people have been asking me at BronxNet Television, when are we getting back into the studio? There's the studio space thing. It's much more complex. For me, the immediacy is amazing, because I could call a Congress member, and instead of having to wait for him or her to get to the Bronx and book time, and it gets very which we've done, of course, for a quarter of a century, but now they could do it during their lunch hour, and they pop in. We can do an interview, and the access is tremendous. The one thing that was frustrating for me was, in a room I could manage a conversation. I could point them and say, "You do this. Hang on 1 second. You can answer." That kind of thing. And with Zoom, it's very complicated. So what we are doing now, we're just adding more time, so that if they do have a rebut or they do want to go back and forth, we have the framework. But for many of the forums that I did prior to now, I found it frustrating, just because, yeah, it's good. We're hearing the candidates, but we're just hearing, 1 minute or 2 minute sound bites, and it's not a dialogue, which of course the people were striving for. So how do you see this developing once you get past, or is, what you've laid out already what you're going to do, or are there new ideas or new things that you're going to do as we move toward the future?
I think Sky and I we're going to do a weekly show.
Isn't that wonderful?
We're, kind of a week in review video thing. We do like to keep things fast and friendly. I think everyone's very serious. There's the pandemic and crime and racism and housing, and these are huge issues.
Don't start me.
But it's also a lot of pressure. And sometimes people, I think, can share a laugh too. I think politics can be covered a little serious, but a little tongue in cheek. And that's kind of what I think we're going to go for.
I'll tell you, if you're ever looking for a guest, I'd love to hang out with you, and we could talk about the Bronx a little bit. You would never have to ask me twice. Maybe we'll get her on here, and we'll do the opposite and have you guys on here.
There was
We're creating something right in front of your eyes, folks.
there was a documentary movie that a friend of mine took me to. It was called Crazy Love.
Okay.
And it was about this guy in the Bronx that fell in love with a woman on one of the parkways. And I mean, Jimmy Breslin wrote about it. He wound up paying somebody to throw acid in her face.
Hey.
And they got together. You might know the story. It's like it was a very strange story. It was a Bronx story.
If there ever was one, yeah.
But what's interesting is they came in contact and he went to jail and he became a jailhouse attorney. And when he got out, they hooked back up and they got married.
Wow, that's a great story. So what's your point about that that film?
It just made me think of the Bronx. That's all.
There you go. It characterized. Well, this is a very, very unique place. Just for the workload, you put the Politics New York, people are going to see that every edition now of the Bronx Times.
Yes, we have in every edition of the Bronx Times, we have a political reporter now. And online, we are putting the debates. And with the debates also, if they want to see any of the Bronx debates, they can go on our Politics NY /debates and go to the Bronx debates. And we also have a YouTube channel that they can.
You know, I have to tell you, I mean, certainly as in my own preparation for what we're doing, we're taping now, and they're going to be played back another week or two after they put Spanish subtitles. I've seen many of them. I haven't seen them all, and they're very good. And listen, nobody would be a tougher critic about Bronx political talk than me. And you guys just do a great job. And what I'm pleased about is what we said a little earlier, and that is, having an association together builds a stronger borough. You know, we have, I know you know media very well. We're so as hard as we all work, we're so underserved. I mean, it's ridiculous. And putting out this kind of stuff just to inform people is as healthy as could be.
Well, I've learned through the debates, the Bronx is a great diverse borough. There's a lot to it. And it's such a pleasure working in partnership with yourself and Bronx Net.
Great. Yes, it certainly is. And listen, I know you haven't been around us that long, but it is in a way, and I think for you as a reporter and a journalist, undiscovered territory. It's what I have learned over even been on the air here for 26 years. It is undiscovered territory. And when we talk about things, it's like nobody knows. You got 1.4 million people, nobody knows who we are. So as a journalist, it's an ongoing revelation, which of course is what we're in the business to do.
And I'm hoping that everything's silico, that, like Brooklyn's hot now, but at one time the Bronx was the place.
Oh, listen. They're going to have the hip hop museum here. We've invented all the kinds of music that are out there, salsa and Latin fusion and everything else. It all comes from us. We have the most visible left-wing politician in America. It always comes from here. I'm sorry, I'm prejudiced in that way. What can I say?
Okay. Well, you also have Ruben Diaz Sr., don't you?
We do, although he's going to be out of. That's right. Well, so maybe we got both sides. Anyway, Steve Witt from Schneps Media and the Bronx Times. I'm going to grab it again. Look for Politics New York in your edition of the Bronx Times, or check it out online. So it is politicsny.com, and I check it out. You should check it out. Steve checks it out. My producer Rebecca checks it out, and that's what we're doing. Steve, it's great to talk to you, and let's keep the association going.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gary.
Great. All right, we're going to be right back, and then it'll be the Bronx Historic District, or it's actually the city's Historic Districts Council doing a Bronx community outreach, and you're going to enjoy it. Don't go away.